Good morning, everyone. We live in a world where strength is often defined by how little we seem to care, by how unaffected we appear in the face of chaos. But let me start by saying this: acting like nothing disturbs you isn't about numbing yourself or denying your emotions. It's about building a life where you decide what gets to have power over you. And here's the secret: they don't teach this in school. It starts with vulnerability. When we think about what it means to be strong, we often picture someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't falter, and certainly doesn't let their emotions show. We've been taught that vulnerability is the opposite of strength, that it's a crack in the armor, a sign of weakness. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a doorway to courage, connection, and resilience. It's the willingness to show up, even when there are no guarantees, even when the outcome might not be what we want. To embrace vulnerability is to acknowledge that we are human. It's admitting that, yes, we can be hurt, but that doesn't mean we're fragile. It means we care, we invest, we feel deeply. Vulnerability is being honest with ourselves and others about what we need, what we fear, and what we dream of. It's the moment when we put down the mask, let go of the act, and say, this is who I am. And it's in that honesty, that rawness, that we find our true strength. The truth is, when we try to avoid vulnerability, we don't just shield ourselves from pain, we also block out joy, love, and connection. Think about it: every meaningful relationship, every big leap of faith, every success worth celebrating comes with a risk. To love is to risk loss. To create is to risk failure. To dream is to risk disappointment. But the alternative is a life lived on the sidelines, where we're safe but unfulfilled. Vulnerability asks us to step into the arena, to be seen, and to keep going even when we're scared. And let's not forget how vulnerability impacts our ability to grow. When we admit we don't have all the answers, we open ourselves up to learning. When we acknowledge that we need help, we create space for others to step in and support us. Vulnerability is what allows us to say, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying, and to extend that same grace to others. It's not about broadcasting your pain to the world or oversharing for the sake of it. It's about being authentic, knowing that the right people will see that honesty is strength, not weakness. There's an incredible freedom in letting go of the need to appear like we've got it all together. When we stop striving for perfection, we start living authentically. Vulnerability gives us permission to be real, to admit when we're struggling, and to celebrate when we're thriving. It allows us to connect with others on a deeper level because, let's face it, perfection isn't relatable. What brings us closer to one another is shared experience, shared humanity, and the courage to say, me too. Understanding the source of what disturbs us is one of the most empowering things we can do for ourselves, yet it's something we often overlook. When we're upset or unsettled, our first instinct is often to react, to lash out, to retreat, to distract ourselves. But rarely do we pause long enough to ask the crucial question, why? Why is this moment, this situation, this comment bothering me so much? What is it about this experience that is triggering such a strong emotional response? The truth is, what disturbs us often runs deeper than the surface level event. It's rarely about the specific thing that just happened. A comment from a friend might sting, but the hurt usually comes from the story we attach to it. Stories like, they don't value me, or I'm not good enough. A minor inconvenience can feel like a major offense when it taps into a well of unaddressed frustration or stress. By understanding the source of our disturbance, we begin to untangle the web of emotions and beliefs that often compound our struggles. This process requires self-awareness and a willingness to look inward. It's not always comfortable because it forces us to confront parts of ourselves we may not want to see. Maybe we discover that our irritation comes from feeling inadequate in a certain area of our lives. Maybe we realize that the anger we feel is actually masking sadness or fear. These insights can be challenging, but they're also incredibly liberating. When we understand the root of what's bothering us, we take back control. We stop being puppets to our emotions yanked around by unseen strings and start becoming the authors of our own experiences. It's important to acknowledge that some disturbances are tied to past experiences. Maybe there's a pattern in your life, certain words or actions that consistently get under your skin. Often these patterns point to unresolved wounds or unmet needs. For instance, if you grew up feeling unheard, even a small interruption in conversation might make you feel dismissed. If you faced rejection in the past, a simple disagreement can feel like a personal attack. These moments are invitations to heal, to address the lingering pain that's amplifying your current distress. Understanding the source of disturbance also means recognizing when something isn't about you at all. People's actions and words are often reflections of their own struggles, insecurities, or fears. When someone lashes out or acts in a way that seems unfair, it's easy to take it personally. But pausing to consider what might be driving their behavior can shift our perspective. It doesn't excuse harmful actions, but it allows us to respond with more clarity and less emotional reactivity. We also need to consider the role of our environment in shaping our emotional state. Sometimes what disturbs us isn't tied to a single event or person, but is a result of chronic stress, unrealistic expectations, or lack of alignment with our values. If we're constantly pushing ourselves beyond our limits, even small setbacks can feel like the last straw. If we're living in a way that doesn't honor who we are, every disturbance feels magnified because it's hitting an already frayed nerve. When we take the time to understand these dynamics, we gain a sense of power and perspective. We stop reacting impulsively and start responding thoughtfully. We give ourselves the gift of self-compassion, recognizing that it's okay to feel unsettled and that those feelings are clues, not catastrophes. And we begin to see that the things that disturb us are not obstacles, but opportunities, chances to grow, to heal, and to better understand ourselves. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, yet so many of us struggle with it. We hesitate, fearing that we'll upset others, be seen as selfish, or damage relationships. We convince ourselves that saying yes to everything is the noble thing to do, that accommodating everyone else's needs is a measure of our worth. But what we fail to realize is that boundaries are not about pushing people away, they're about creating healthy spaces where mutual respect can thrive. The challenge often lies in our mindset. We've been conditioned to believe that prioritizing our own needs is somehow wrong. We worry that saying no will make others think less of us, or that it will lead to conflict we're not prepared to face. But the truth is, without boundaries, we become overwhelmed, overextended, and ultimately resentful. Saying yes to everyone else often means saying no to ourselves. And that's a cost too great to bear in the long run. Boundaries are not about being rigid or unkind. They're about clarity. They're about understanding what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued, and then communicating those needs in a way that others can understand. It's not about controlling other people's behavior. It's about defining what you will and won't accept in your own life. For example, you can't force someone to treat you with kindness, but you can choose to step away from interactions that are consistently hurtful. You can't dictate how others use your time, but you can be firm about how much time you're willing to give. One of the most powerful aspects of setting boundaries is the realization that they don't have to come with guilt. Guilt often creeps in because we confuse boundaries with rejection. We think that by saying no to someone, we're rejecting them as a person. But boundaries are not about rejection, they're about preservation. They preserve your energy, your peace, and your ability to show up fully in the areas of your life that matter most. When you set a boundary, you're not saying, I don't care about you. You're saying, I care about myself enough to ensure I can be my best self for you and for others. Communicating boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you've spent much of your life avoiding conflict or prioritizing others. But discomfort is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're growing. Start small with clear and compassionate language. Instead of over-explaining or apologizing, simply state your boundary. For example, I'm not available to help with that this week, but I hope it goes well, or I need some time to think before I respond to this. You don't owe anyone an elaborate justification for taking care of yourself. It's also important to remember that setting boundaries isn't just about what you say, it's about what you enforce. If someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, it's not your job to keep reminding them, it's your job to take action. That might mean limiting your interactions with them or reevaluating the role they play in your life. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Allowing someone to consistently cross your boundaries only teaches them that it's okay to do so. Another crucial aspect of boundaries is that they're not just for other people, they're for you too. Sometimes we need to set boundaries with ourselves. This might mean limiting the time we spend on things that drain us, saying no to opportunities that don't align with our values, or resisting the urge to please others at the expense of our own well-being. These internal boundaries are just as important as the external ones, and they remind us to honor our own needs as much as we honor those of others. Cultivating inner calm is not something that happens by accident. It's not a passive state that we stumble upon in the midst of our busy lives. It requires intentional practice, consistent effort, and a deep commitment to creating space for peace in our often chaotic world. In fact, the more we lean into the busyness of life, the more important it becomes to carve out time for practices that help us find stillness amidst the noise. At its core, inner calm is about learning to anchor ourselves in the present moment, regardless of the circumstances around us. It's about training our minds to stay centered when life throws challenges our way, rather than getting swept up in worry, stress, or frustration. The problem is, most of us are conditioned to react to stress rather than respond to it. We rush to fix things, to control situations, to distract ourselves from discomfort. But true calm is found when we pause long enough to breathe, to reflect, and to simply be with whatever is happening. One of the most effective practices for cultivating inner calm is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about noticing your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical sensations without getting caught up in them or reacting to them. When we practice mindfulness, we create a space between stimulus and reaction. This space allows us to respond more thoughtfully with a sense of clarity and calm, rather than reacting impulsively or out of habit. Mindfulness can be practiced in a variety of ways, from simply taking a few deep breaths when you feel overwhelmed to engaging in a full meditation session. Meditation is an incredibly powerful tool for building inner calm, as it helps train the mind to focus and quiet the constant chatter that often clouds our thoughts. By setting aside time each day to meditate, we create a habit of stillness that carries over into other areas of our lives. Meditation doesn't have to be long or complicated. Even just 5 minutes of focusing on your breath can have a profound impact on your mental and emotional state. Another practice that fosters inner calm is gratitude. In times of stress or uncertainty, it's easy to focus on what's going wrong or what we don't have. But shifting our focus to what we do have and what is going right can help us cultivate a sense of peace. Gratitude helps reframe our mindset, moving us from a state of lack to one of abundance. It reminds us that even in the midst of challenges, there is always something to be grateful for, whether it's the support of a loved one, the beauty of nature, or simply the ability to breathe deeply in the present moment. By practicing gratitude daily, we can build a habit of focusing on the positive, which has the power to quiet the noise in our minds and soothe our souls. Another important aspect of cultivating inner calm is self-compassion. Often we're our own harshest critics, berating ourselves for our mistakes, shortcomings, and perceived failures. But this constant self-judgment only contributes to our stress and anxiety. Self-compassion is about treating ourselves with the same kindness, understanding, and patience that we would offer to a friend. When we stop beating ourselves up and start showing ourselves compassion, we allow ourselves to release tension and find peace. It's not about ignoring our mistakes or avoiding accountability. It's about acknowledging our humanity and embracing ourselves with love and care. Creating inner calm also involves learning how to set limits with the world around us. We live in a time when we're constantly connected, constantly available, and constantly expected to do more, be more, and have more. This relentless pace can make it incredibly difficult to find moments of stillness. But setting boundaries with our time, our energy, and our attention is essential for maintaining our inner peace. It's okay to say no to extra commitments, to disconnect from technology, and to prioritize rest. By protecting our time and energy, we create the space we need to recharge and cultivate a sense of calm. Physical practices like yoga or gentle stretching can also play a key role in fostering inner calm. The mind and body are deeply interconnected, and physical tension often manifests as mental tension. Yoga, for example, helps release physical tension while also promoting mindfulness, making it an excellent practice for soothing the mind. Even a few minutes of gentle stretching can help release stress and bring the body into a more relaxed state. These practices help us reconnect with our bodies and become more aware of where we're holding tension, so we can consciously release it and return to a place of calm. Cultivating inner calm isn't about achieving a perfect state of tranquility all the time. It's about developing the tools and practices that allow us to return to calm when we need it most. Life will always have its ups and downs. There will always be moments of stress, uncertainty, and discomfort. But when we consistently practice mindfulness, gratitude, self-compassion, and boundary setting, we build a foundation of peace that can support us through the turbulence. The more we practice, the easier it becomes to return to that place of inner calm, no matter what life throws our way. Strength is often misunderstood. Society tends to define strength in terms of external achievements, physical power, or the ability to endure hardships without showing weakness. It's the image of a person who never breaks, never falters, and seemingly never feels vulnerable. But this narrow definition of strength leaves out the most important aspect of all, the ability to embrace our humanity, to experience our emotions fully, and to keep moving forward despite the inevitable difficulties life throws our way. True strength doesn't lie in the absence of struggle. It lies in how we navigate those struggles with grace, resilience, and self-awareness. Redefining strength begins with the recognition that it's not about avoiding vulnerability, but embracing it. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, a state to be avoided at all costs. But in reality, vulnerability is the birthplace of true strength. It takes incredible courage to allow ourselves to feel, to be open, to expose our true selves to the world. Strength is not the suppression of emotion or the act of carrying the weight of the world without flinching. It's the ability to show up as you are, to say, this is where I am and I'm going to keep going, even when it's difficult. This kind of strength requires the willingness to face discomfort head-on. It means acknowledging that life is full of challenges and that hardship is an inevitable part of the human experience. Strength is not about denying our emotions, pretending that everything is fine when it's not, or pushing through pain without addressing it. It's about leaning into discomfort, sitting with it, and giving ourselves permission to experience what we're feeling without judgment. It's knowing that we are allowed to be messy, to falter, and to grieve. It's recognizing that our emotional responses are valid and that they don't make us weak, they make us human. Another aspect of strength is the ability to rise after falling. Everyone faces setbacks, disappointments, and failures. It's not the failure that defines us, it's what we do with it. True strength is shown in the way we respond to adversity. It's the courage to get up, dust ourselves off, and try again, even when the path forward isn't clear. It's the resilience to learn from mistakes, to use failure as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. Strength is the quiet determination to keep moving forward, to hold on to hope, and to keep believing in ourselves, even when it feels like everything is working against us. Strength also involves deep self-awareness. It's about understanding our own limits and recognizing when we need to rest, when we need help, and when we need to make changes in our lives. The bravest thing we can do is to admit that we don't have all the answers and that we need support. True strength is not found in isolation or in pretending that we can do it all on our own. It's in knowing when to ask for help, in surrounding ourselves with people who care, and in being open to guidance and feedback. It's about knowing that strength doesn't come from perfection, but from the willingness to learn, grow, and evolve. In redefining strength, we must also acknowledge the importance of kindness both to ourselves and to others. Strength isn't about being tough and unfeeling. It's about being compassionate, empathetic, and understanding. It's the strength to be gentle with ourselves when we're struggling, to extend grace to others when they falter, and to offer a hand to someone in need. True strength doesn't involve stepping on others to climb higher. It involves lifting others up along the way. It's about creating connections, being present for others, and showing up with an open heart. Moreover, strength is about maintaining our sense of purpose and our values even when the world around us feels chaotic. It's the courage to stand up for what we believe in, to speak our truth, and to stay aligned with our core principles, even when it's hard. Strength is not about being immune to criticism or challenge. It's about having the courage to stay true to who we are, even in the face of opposition. It's the inner conviction that we are enough, just as we are, and that we have the power to shape our own lives and influence the world around us. True strength is rooted in acceptance, not resistance. It's the ability to accept ourselves as we are flaws, imperfections, and to find peace in that acceptance. When we stop fighting against ourselves, when we stop trying to be someone we're not, we create space for real strength to emerge. We stop needing to prove anything to anyone, and we begin to live with authenticity and ease. Strength comes from knowing that we are worthy of love and respect, not because of what we do or achieve, but because of who we are. Lastly, strength is found in our capacity to love. It takes strength to love ourselves, even when we fall short of our own expectations, and to love others with no strings attached, without condition or judgment. Love, in its purest form, requires vulnerability, trust, and an open heart. It takes strength to open ourselves to love, to give of ourselves without fear of getting hurt, and to keep loving even when it's hard. When we redefine strength as love, vulnerability, and resilience, we shift our understanding of what it means to truly be strong. The narratives we tell ourselves shape our reality. They influence how we see the world, how we interact with others, and how we perceive our own worth. But too often we let external forces, the opinions of others, societal expectations, past experiences define the story we live by. We become passive characters in our own lives, allowing circumstances or the voices of others to dictate our choices and beliefs. The truth is, we have the power to choose our narrative, to become the authors of our own story. And when we take control of that narrative, we begin to shape our lives in a way that reflects who we truly are, not who we've been told we should be. Choosing your narrative starts with self-awareness. It's about examining the stories you've been telling yourself and asking whether they truly reflect who you want to be, or if they've been shaped by external pressures. For example, you might have a story about yourself that you're not good enough or that you always fail. These stories can become self-fulfilling prophecies, dictating your actions and limiting your potential. But what if, instead of seeing yourself as a failure, you began to tell yourself that you are resilient, that you learn and grow from every experience, that each challenge is an opportunity for transformation? When we start to see ourselves differently, we begin to act differently and our lives begin to shift. Often the narratives we hold are influenced by the people around us. We internalize the messages we receive from parents, teachers, peers, and even the media. These messages can be empowering or limiting, but regardless of their source, they can become deeply ingrained in our minds. The narrative that you have to be perfect to be loved, that success equals happiness, or that you're not allowed to make mistakes are all examples of stories that can hold us back. These stories can prevent us from taking risks, from pursuing our passions, and from embracing our true selves. But the beauty of choosing your narrative is that you have the power to challenge these old stories, to rewrite them, and to decide what you want your story to be moving forward. One of the most powerful ways to shift your narrative is by changing the language you use about yourself. Language is a tool that shapes our reality, and the words we choose can either empower or limit us. If you constantly tell yourself that you're not capable, not worthy, or not enough, those words become the lens through which you view the world. But when you start to speak to yourself with kindness, compassion, and encouragement, your narrative begins to shift. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," try saying, "This is challenging, but I have the ability to figure it out." Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," say, "I am worthy of love and respect just as I am." Small shifts in language can have a profound impact on how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. By reframing your past, you take the power back from those experiences and you rewrite them as chapters in your story of personal evolution. Another important aspect of choosing your narrative is recognizing that you are not a victim of your circumstances. Life is unpredictable, and things don't always go as planned. We can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond. The narrative of being a victim of believing that life is happening to us rather than with us keeps us disempowered. But when we shift to a narrative of agency, we reclaim our power. We start to see ourselves as active participants in our lives, making choices that align with our values and goals. We begin to focus on what we can control, our mindset, our actions, and our response to challenges. By choosing a narrative of empowerment, we stop seeing ourselves as passive observers and start seeing ourselves as the creators of our own future. Choosing your narrative also means being willing to embrace uncertainty and change. Life is not static, and neither are we. Our story is always unfolding, and we have the power to change the direction at any moment. This can be both liberating and terrifying, but the key to navigating this uncertainty is trust in ourselves, in our ability to adapt, and in the belief that we are worthy of creating the life we desire. The stories we tell ourselves about change, stories of fear, doubt, or failure, often hold us back from embracing the new possibilities that are available to us. But when we choose a narrative that sees change as growth, as an opportunity for new experiences, we become more open to the unknown. We stop clinging to the past or fearing the future, and we begin to live fully in the present moment. Choosing your narrative also requires self-compassion. It's easy to get caught up in the story of perfection, to believe that we have to have it all together all the time. But the truth is, we're all human and we all make mistakes. The narrative of perfection leads to burnout, frustration, and self-criticism. But when we choose a narrative of compassion, we allow ourselves the grace to be imperfect. We acknowledge our flaws and our mistakes, but we also recognize our growth, our progress, and our strengths. Self-compassion allows us to move forward with kindness and understanding without being weighed down by the burden of unrealistic expectations. In the end, the power to shape our lives lies in the stories we choose to tell ourselves. We are not bound by the past, nor are we defined by the expectations of others. Each day, we are given the opportunity to rewrite our narrative, to shift our perspective, and to step into the person we want to become. By choosing to embrace vulnerability, acknowledge our strength, and take ownership of our journey, we open the door to a life filled with possibility. Remember, the narrative you choose is not just a reflection of who you are today, it's a map for who you will become tomorrow. So, choose your story wisely, with compassion, with courage, and with the unwavering belief that you have the power to create the life you deserve.